Welcome to another episode of FortinetLIVE. Today we talk about staying safe online and who could be a better sparring partner than Aamir Lakhani, who has been probably sleeping more in hotels than at home. But I see you're back in your garage, Aamir. How have you been doing?
Well, I'm really enjoying my garage, trying to get some projects done. I am good because I am home today, and you're right. I think I've spent like something like 60 or 70 days on the road in just the last 6 months. But it's good to be home, and it's good to be home during my favorite time of the year, the holiday season, because that's when I get my credit card out and like have a lot of fun all the time.
Yeah, talking about credit cards, there are a lot of things which we need to be aware during the holiday seasons in general, how we stay safe online. But I think one big difference between being in online from working from home, working from anywhere, and even like in our private time versus being in an office, there are different kind of environments which we're dealing with. So
Yeah,
first of all,
absolutely. Like Jonas, I was going to ask you. We always like talk every year about being safe online, but there is really a difference in being safe online at home versus in the office, right? There's actually like a little difference you kind of need to get on your mind. And it used to be a little different a few years ago because I remember everyone used to kind of wait until they got into the office and started shopping because they had the high speed connections. But it doesn't really matter anymore. In fact, probably I wouldn't be surprised if more people are just shopping online on their home internet connections. But I just wanted to ask you: is there a difference between like the strategies you would take online versus in the office?
yeah, first of all, I wouldn't recommend visiting certain websites in the office which you visit at home. But the biggest difference from a security point of view is definitely corporations and companies have been investing quite a lot in different kind of security layers. So for example, if you're in an office environment, you have security layers in place who check what kind of website you visit so they can make sure these websites are legitimate. Additionally, if files are being downloaded, there might be security layers in place which scan attachments to make sure these files are not malicious. Where on the other hand, when you browse from other places like from your home network, you might not have these security layers in place. So it's really important to understand that the way you behave and connect with the internet has a really big impact from where you're doing it. And it goes the same way if you're at home or in a public Wi-Fi. There's a big difference as well because in a public Wi-Fi, for example, anyone who's around that specific area can join this public Wi-Fi and can pretty much look at a little bit from a technical view about who else is connected and what are these people doing. So I think that's a really big takeaway.
Yeah, I think I love that you mentioned a couple of things. First of all, when you talked about like checking where you're going to, that's the first thing that I would recommend to people is go to legitimate websites. That's how attackers actually. That's one of their number one vectors of attack, especially during the holiday seasons, is to send you to fake websites, and they do this in a variety of different ways. Is like you may be looking for that hard to get holiday item, and so they send out like a Twitter message or something on a social media platform, and then you click on it, you're like, wow, I got to be first in line. And second of all, it may look like something like a very legitimate website, it's like a big retailer, but it could be a phishing website. They've changed one little letter that you may have not noticed, maybe replaced a zero with an O or something like a little sneaky like that. But when you click on it, you're getting the site you kind of expect to get, and that's what they're doing. And what they're doing at that point is they're stealing your login credentials to that website so they could possibly place orders for you on that website and get shipped somewhere else, or most likely just stealing your email address as well as your credit card information. So I would definitely look out for that. And then the other thing you said is, if it sounds too good to be true, like be careful because there's a lot of attacks that happen through email attachments, like, hey, fill out this form, get in line, get a rebate, get something like that. And attackers are definitely taking advantage of that. And you got to be careful. But DNS protection, as you said, is a good way around that, as well as just having good endpoint security solutions.
Definitely, but sometimes, let's say, you're a prime example. You're not even in the office environments. You're not at home. You're always on the road. You're in hotels. You're in at airports. What is like your main recommendation? Because I get asked so often while I travel myself, hey, what is the biggest difference from you interacting with the internet while traveling versus you being in a different kind of environment?
Well, I wish, first of all, I wouldn't get excited and go shopping when I'm on the road, and that would probably, save me a lot of money. But one of the things you didn't mention is public Wi-Fi, and you really do have to be careful on public Wi-Fi, because even if you're going to a website that has end-to-end encryption, you're going to a very legitimate site. Things are not always encrypted in every layer. For example, I'm sure you've seen it. You've been browsing something online, and all of a sudden you get advertisements of something that's kind of related. The reason you sometimes get that is because your DNS headers, the actual websites you're going to, that's actually readable, and it could be readable not only for people on the public Wi-Fi that's sharing that public Wi-Fi with you, but it's also readable to other places that the provider may be sending information, such as advertisements or other places as well. And that's definitely an opportunity attackers can take. Also, I always recommend VPNs, but I recommend a trusted VPN. A lot of people are just signing up for VPN providers because they've seen some sort of ad on YouTube or something like that, but they don't really vet if that's a trusted provider or not. Now, most of them are trusted providers, and most of them are very legitimate. But look into that. And when you look into VPNs, especially if you're looking into public VPN providers, be careful, because a lot of review sites are also like ad promoted and ad sponsored as well. So there's a little bit of work you need to do. So I think what I normally like to do is a couple of things. Is I try and stay away from public Wi-Fi. I'll use my LTE connections if I can. I always do a VPN to a trusted VPN provider. I only use legitimate websites. And then lastly, what I do is I try and use temporary credit cards. A lot of credit card companies now are providing like this ephemeral credit card, temporary credit card that you can generate on the fly for a single use, or time-based period, or a maximum amount of money that you want to put on it. There are websites that do that that are very legitimate as well. And those are all three things I think help. At least they start to help.
Definitely. I want to take one of these things you mentioned a little bit more apart, because when we talk about the public Wi-Fis, a lot of people challenge me as well. Jonas, I'm in this network, you're in this network. But these days, most networks or most websites are encrypted. So even if you're in the same network, you cannot sniff my traffic and see what I'm doing. But what a lot of people underestimate is that even though you're in the same network, it's not just about the connection between the people connected inside this network. It's everyone who can join this network can also scan who is running this environment. So for example, if I join a random coffee place, or let's say a hotel, I have now capabilities of like doing some kind of penetration testing or attacks against this hotel specifically. So maybe I'm capable of discovering the IP address of the router, or as you mentioned, the DNS server. And if I'm as an attacker are capable of getting access to that specific device, even though I'm in the same public Wi-Fi and my connections are encrypted to a specific website, if I own the router, I can start modifying certain terms. So I can put in my own DNS server. And even though you think everything is encrypted, because it's my own DNS server, I get much more visibility. So that's definitely a point which sometimes people underestimate a little bit. If you join a public network, not only do you need to make sure that whatever website you browse is being monitored by someone else, but also the whole network itself is owned by someone else. And you need to trust a specific person, that whoever runs this network has security layers in place, and not someone else has like rogue applications installed in that specific environment.
Yeah, it's funny when you mentioned that, because I was so excited when 802.11 AX was coming out, or next generation Wi-Fi, because it basically added this feature where you would basically have a connection between your client and the Wi-Fi access point, and that mitigates some of the attacks you're talking about, because when you join a public Wi-Fi network, right, there are things that you can see, right, very passively attackers can do, such as looking at what websites you're connecting to. Who's out there. There's definitely other more active attacks, such as man-in-the-middle attacks, that they can do as well. And sure, that now has a little bit of limitations, because everything is SSL. So even if they do a man-in-the-middle attack, they'll probably have a certificate error if they're trying to redirect you to a website. But there's ways around that and social engineering tricks. So let's not kid ourselves. But also, finally, even with these new security features added, most public hotspots are not using the latest Wi-Fi standards. They're using something that's a couple of years old, sometimes many years old, and because of that infrastructure is also susceptible to other types of attacks, and you're putting yourself at risk. So public Wi-Fi's are definitely risky, and I would tell everyone that, be really careful, especially, treat online shopping like you would like checking your bank account or transferring money from bank accounts. Treat it with the same type of respect, and hopefully you'll be a little more safer. But there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and we're just talking about on-premise attacks where people are around and public Wi-Fi's. Don't forget that information can be sniffed out from other vendors as well. Some vendors, some public Wi-Fi hotspots will sell information to advertisements for completely legitimate purposes, but you never know where that is going in the background or where that's being used. So other things can happen as well.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, and I want to dive a little bit deeper into the second point you mentioned, which are VPNs, because these days it's very easy to join VPNs all across the internet, because all you got to do is open your browser and search for some public VPNs. Some people like to use them to pretend to be in a different geolocation to access certain kind of services. But what's important to understand here as well is that whoever owns this VPN service owns now also the information about who's coming in and who's going out. So they see you as a user, and they also see what kind of websites you are visiting. So that's also something to keep in mind when selecting a VPN provider. So that's something where we are very cautious about. Who do we trust? What kind of VPN provider do we use? For the guys who are more technically like you and me, we probably use our own VPN service, which is running in our own environment at home. But this is probably not doable for anyone out there. So it's important to, when you make these selections, that you are aware.
Yeah, I agree. Like, since we do have a lot of technical people online, I would say do what me and you do. Probably get a cloud provider and run our own VPN services that we install and compile ourselves, and or use some well-known vendors out there. I do feel bad for consumers out there. I think they have to be a little careful, because most of the time consumers are usually picking vendors that usually have the most volume in advertisements, right? So they're like, oh, I've heard of this vendor over and over again. They advertise, and then they basically associate some sort of security or legitimacy to that vendor. And that's not a bad thing. That could be completely correct, but you don't know. You have to go a little step beyond that. And I think as security professionals, it's kind of our responsibility to advocate proper research and security and recommendations. So for the security people watching, I would definitely say look at the popular VPN vendors. So if your friends do ask for them, you can make a good recommendation.
Yeah, definitely. And also moving one step ahead of VPNs, what we see a lot of companies now being embracing is zero trust networking. So instead of you needing a VPN to access a certain corporate website, whenever you travel, you rely on other technologies where you constantly start scanning what is happening on your device. Do you have the right certificate? There's software on your computer installed, which is checking, is your system running current software? Is it out of date? Does it have malware? Which is a big improvement in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I like that you turned it around a little bit, and we're going back to more of the business side. So first of all, on the client side, on the business side, absolutely, patching and first of all, making sure your software is up to date is critical. That's OS patches. That's making sure you have good endpoint protection, which is going to go a very long way, and also making sure that you are using kind of the proper methods. Zero trust networking, zero trust access. Very complicated. A lot, I know dozens and dozens of companies that are in the process of going to zero trust, but it's a process. But I think that really does help. That really is a good advantage that we can get against a lot of security problems and security issues. That added on with segmentation, definitely helps. There's a lot of things that websites are also need to be aware of, like retailers, websites that need to be aware of. And I know we have a lot of experts at Fortinet that are going to do a number of blogs and articles and maybe even videos on the retail space. But I would say pay attention if you are in the retail space on things that you can do, from web application protection to looking at your own reputation, looking at what's how you could be possibly targeted as well.
Yeah, and now with the upcoming holiday season, we just need to be aware that this is a trending theme which we see every single year, and this is not something just since last year. This is something which we look back, I think it's over the last 10 years plus. Every single time, attackers are prepared. They know human behavior. They know what they're usually going to do, and they set up their scams in advance, so they will be prepared. So it's the same preparation needed on the defensive side for the people out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, most of these things happen when people have this, especially in the holiday season. They have what I call FOMO syndrome, right? Fear of missing out, FOMO, and they have this fear like, oh, I'm not going to get the latest deal, I'm not going to get the latest discount, I'm going to miss like buying the latest video game system, and so they basically have this urge to get on things right away. So when they do get pop-ups on it happens on social media very often. When they do get pop-ups from social media, hey, this is like available right now, it's a deal of a lifetime. What we call like doorbuster deals online. It could be online or physical. That's when attackers know we can take advantage of you, and that's where we're going to make sure you make a mistake. And that's what happens is you get attacked by malware or phishing, which is the most common aspects of these attacks. And then they're onto you. Then their goal is to essentially somehow gain financially through your mistakes. So be aware of that.
Yeah, with that being said, hopefully everyone is aware about what is going to happen, but also hopefully everyone has a chance to enjoy their holidays. It has been a wild 2022, and hopefully we can have other discussions soon in the beginning of 2023. Thanks so much for joining, Aamir.
Hey, thank you again.